We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Mecca of Banter podcast. Straight off the bat, Arsenal have now blown a 9-point lead. They've lost the League Cup final, and they lost to a non-league team in the FA Cup, and we got to see Haaland do his thing over the weekend. Sometimes I get a good feeling. At what point, ladies and gentlemen, do we just stop calling it bottling again and again and just accept that this is just how Arsenal is? Man, what a weekend in the Premier League. What's up? It's your boy Hen. I've been away from the pod for a minute now. We've had some things pop up between daughter stuff, new job stuff, school stuff. I haven't really been able to be on here a whole lot, and y'all are in for a treat, I suppose, tonight, depending on where you exist in your fandom. It's going to be a solo pod. The boys have been busy all week long, and we figured we would get something out to you all instead of nothing. But you're just going to have to listen to me for tonight. So we're going to talk Premier League. We're going to talk about some big storylines going on across Europe. And of course, we have some St. Louis City to weigh in as well. So without further ado, let's dive on in. And the Premier League is hitting its stride, coming down to the wire. At time of recording, Tuesday, April 1st, the table currently is Arsenal, number 1 on 70 points. Man City with 67 points in second, but they have the game in hand. That's huge. And if City win out, they should win the Premier League on goal differential. United is in third on 58 points. And to my surprise today, as I was doing my research, did anyone else just completely forget that Aston Villa was climbing up the table? I don't know if it was something earlier in the season where maybe they got off to a rocky point or they just had some turbulence during the season. But if you were to have paid me to tell me what was the top 4 right now, Aston Villa would not even been close. So maybe that's on me. Maybe that's something that I got to figure out. But, that leaves Liverpool in 5th. Brighton, as of earlier today, has now jumped Chelsea into 6th place position. And then you have Chelsea. So the top 6 is heating up, but really it's coming down to that top 2 title deciding race. We'll talk about that game in a little bit. And then don't forget the bottom of the table as well. The relegation zone is more lively than ever. Wolves officially, as of yesterday, has been relegated. There's nothing that they can do the rest of the season to save their season. So maybe potentially watch some summer signings coming from those squads. But then you have Burnley in 19th, you have Tottenham in 18th, and you have West Ham in 17th. This is going to be an all-time survival, if you will, for Tottenham. I don't really know what to say about it. I want to come in here and I want to banter as much as possible because that's what I do. But at some point, you just got to feel bad for Tottenham and their fans. Just kidding. No, you don't. You don't have to feel bad at all. No, you don't. What a horribly run football club from top to bottom. I think if they do to go down, this is the most talented team by far to ever go down. And I think if Hoover were here, he would be the first one to admit that. But it is funny also when you look across their squad, how many of their players would you even take in your current setup? So we'll dive into that. We have some things to talk about, but let's start off with the game of the weekend, the one that everyone's eyes were on, which was Man City, Arsenal at the Etihad. 1 victory for City. I think just overall, this felt like a game that City just was going to win. I think before the game, they were minus 120 for the money line, and I think it was the easiest bet I've hit all season. You started off the game with just an absolute class goal from Ryan Cherky in the 16th minute, just dancing through the Arsenal defense, putting, I think it was Gabriel, on absolute toast. You're just seeing the class from him just about every time he touches the football. If you were in our group chat, 9 months ago, whatever it was, Dobes shared that, hot take, Cherky's going to have a better season than Wirtz. And I think at the time, we knew kind of the levels that Cherky had. And we also knew that he was a bit of a maverick. He didn't mind taking people on and didn't mind doing his own thing. But I don't think anyone saw coming how impactful he's actually been. And Sean Hughes will be the first one to tell you that he's been, in his opinion, the most dangerous player in the Premier League all season long. And Pep has kept him on the bench half the season, which is fascinating in and of itself. But right after that, in the 18th minute, Kai Havertz just capitalizes on a Donnarumma howler, for lack of better terms. And where did that come from? Completely against the run of play. 2 minutes after they score the goal, they win the ball back, they play it back to Donnarumma, and he's just too casual on it and kind of turned the game on its head, and it was funny too. Of course, Arsenal's goal came from not a shot on goal. It came from a defensive error. Insane, absolutely insane. But then as the game went on, it just looked like Arsenal just never really had it. thinking back through, there was like I think Arsenal hit the post once, but Haaland eventually also in our group chat, I put in our group chat that like Erling Haaland has to do something. And this is where I'm critical of him. People are saying that he potentially could be the player of the season this season. If City go on to win the title, like it'd be hard not to give him. But I think if you're looking at the first half of this season, he was on a tear. And I feel like the second half of the season, he's kind of regressed quite a bit. And there's something odd about when he plays Arsenal. And I don't know if it's the physicality of Gabriel and Saliba or what it is, but he just kind of is quiet in those games. And he doesn't really do a whole lot. It feels like the main thing that he brings to the side is occupying those two defenders, which in and of itself is a skill. But I put in our group chat, I was like, man, I got to see something from Haaland here. And not even 30 seconds later, he puts the ball in the back of the net, which is cool. Good for him. That's great. It is weird sometimes as a United fan to prefer City to win the title, but I just can't stand that Arsenal team, and no one is here to debate me otherwise. They're just they're a team that kind of does this to themselves between like the TikTok edits that you see online and Arteta doing his thing to be just the worst. It all is embodied in what happens, later in the game. There's a coming together between Gabriel and Haaland, and earlier in the game, Gabriel like literally rips the sleeves off of Haaland's jersey. No foul, by the way, no foul given. And later in the game, there's a coming together and a very clear, very, very clear headbutting action from Gabriel towards Erling Haaland. He doesn't connect on it because Haaland kind of pulls away, but a very clear headbutting motion and no disciplinary action on that, which is quite literally insane, where just a week earlier, Lisandro Martinez gets a straight red card and a 3-game suspension for violent conduct for his hand coming down on the top of Dominic Calvert-Lewin's man bun. And that's violent conduct, but Gabriel literally lunging forward towards Erling Haaland. And I looked it up like afterwards. I couldn't understand it. Maybe it was, I thought that maybe it was the fact that he didn't connect is what saved him, but I looked it up in the rule books. Any attempt of violent conduct, regardless if it connects or not, is an automatic red card. And the refs just chose to ignore it. And then the VAR chose to ignore it, which is just beyond frustrating. As a fan, you just want to see consistency. And even if Lucas was sitting here, he would say like, yeah, the consistency isn't there, but how ridiculous is that? Wild. I'm not going to pretend that the last several games for City are just a cakewalk, that they're automatically going to win. But we've seen this position now the last 2 seasons with Arsenal getting down to the wire and then not making it happen, And so unfortunately now they are no longer in control of their destiny, and City might just be inevitable in this space. There's something that happens in January every year where Pep seemingly just decides to turn it on. I don't know. For me, I've watched this Arsenal team for years. I've watched them build their team. I've watched them build their recruiting. I just don't think that they have it. Be it as it may, hot take maybe, I do not think that that Arsenal will ever win a Premier League under Mikel Arteta. I just don't think it'll happen. There is something about the way that he makes decisions in games. Our group chat was exploding towards the end of the game whenever, they were chasing the game down a goal and they brought on another defender. You got to throw everything in the kitchen sink at that team to equalize. You have to go for it. And choosing not to do it, like to me, it's inexcusable. I don't know any other way to put it. And sure, they advanced in the round in the Champions League and great, like that's good for them. But it just seems like they just don't have it. They just don't have it. Kai Havertz has a brilliant chance at the end of the end of the game to equalize and just doesn't do it. He sails it over the crossbar. I don't think Arsenal does it. And I don't think that they do it under Arteta. And I think that the quicker that Arsenal fans can kind of understand that and kind of demand more from the team, the better. There's just something about it right now where they just seem to be entranced with Mikel Arteta. For what reason, I'm not sure. But now I think it's City's league to lose. So we'll see. We'll get into some of these games here, but some big storylines going on, some big results, if you will. United beats Chelsea 1-0. Of course, I'm going to be talking about that, and it's capped off with Bruno Fernandes' 18th assist of the season. United win with 1 shot on target. What's up? That's great. That's awesome. We'll talk about Chelsea here in a second. Other than the City-Arsenal game, if you need a game to go back and watch about the game of the weekend, Aston Villa-Sunderland, a 4-3 victory from Aston Villa in the last minute. I mean, whoa. That game was insane. Sunderland are for real. It's not often that you see a newly promoted team hang, and Sunderland have done it the entire season. It wasn't too long ago that they were in, what was it, the top 6, top 4 of the league for a really long time. And of course, they don't have the same resources that a team like Villa does, for example. And so the likelihood of them going the distance, top 4 the entire season, is very minimal. But man, they belong in the Premier League the way that they've played this season. So it's been fun to watch them. Forest win 4-1 against Burnley. Leeds United 3-0 convincing win over Wolves that puts the dagger in the coffin for Wolves this season. But it's also a big thing for Leeds. They're now a mid-table club. They're moving on up the board. And finally, we have the Everton-Liverpool Merseyside derby where Liverpool wins. And I think the 90 plus 10? What was it, like 2 seasons ago, that it always felt like Liverpool was given like crazy amounts of stoppage time and they seemed to pull it out. Man, they're staying relevant, I guess, in this top 4 Champions League. And I guess Champions League now is top 5 for this season, but they're staying relevant. So you got to commend them there. I'd be curious, if you're listening along, if you are a Liverpool fan. We have some resident Liverpool fans, obviously, in the Mecca of Banter. They're very much slot out. As an opposing fan, I'm like, keep slot in for as long as you want, man. Would love to see him continue. But it's interesting. There's news reportings today that it's not anticipated that Slot will be sacked at the end of the season. And, results are results. Ewan, in the Mecca of Banter, he shared with us his opinions today that he doesn't believe that Slot he's a Liverpool fan. He doesn't believe that Slot should be sacked, which kind of surprised me. But his thought process was, he won the league year 1, and the second season, yes, there was a regression, but it looks like they are going to secure Champions League as well. And so when you think about it, like, in a transitional season, I guess, for them, securing Champions League may not be the worst thing, but I think the manner in which they've done it has just been really, really poor to watch. People always say like 3 points is 3 points, and people's journeys or teams' journeys to get top 4, top 5 is always their own individual journeys. You can have a team that plays beautiful football, and they can be in 6th and people can love them, but you can have a team at the top of the table that plays absolute terrorist football, Arsenal, and people don't like watching them, because it's just a style of football. And I think that's the case with Liverpool here, where some of the decisions, that Slot's made throughout the season regarding substitutions or playing certain players or the infatuation with Cody Gakpo is very fascinating from a Liverpool perspective. So yeah, Slot in, I guess. We'll see. Let us know in the comments if you feel similarly. Move on to the Chelsea United game. Of course, I'm going to talk about this as a United fan, but I'm actually going to start with Chelsea. And it's interesting, during my prep of this, I did a lot of note taking about the Chelsea United game, and a lot of my thoughts and opinions were after that. But today, just a couple hours ago, Chelsea played Brighton and lost again. So some of these stats and statistics are outdated, if you will. But now Chelsea have now lost 4 Premier League games in a row and haven't scored in any of them. 5 scoreless games if you include their Champions League second leg against PSG. These are just facts that I'm just reading out. They're in 6th, trailing behind Liverpool with 4 points with a game more to play. Serious risk of no European football. And I think Liam Rosnier, which I just call Terry Rozier, I can't tell with him, right? So on one hand, I don't think he's up for the job, Liam. I don't think that there's the pedigree there to handle a squad like that. I don't think that he has the chops to do it. I think he can be good with the media, and he's a little bit quirky, and he used to be a pundit and a journalist. So he kind of like, I trust that he has a footballing brain, but the project itself, man, the project of Chelsea is just so fucked. I remember when Enzo Maresca there was talks of him getting sacked at the beginning of the season. And, there's discourse back and forth of like, well, who's going to be the right guy to come in? Who's going to be the guy to come in and save this Chelsea squad? And I said back then, there's no saving this Chelsea squad. There's no saving this organization at the moment. The way that, BlueCo is like the parent company now, Todd Bowley and company, the way that they have set up the contracts, the wage structure, the 8 or 9 year deals that they do, the multi-club ownership, sending people and shipping them out to Strasbourg. It's bad. It's really chaotic. I think it's chaotic for the players. I think it's chaotic for the manager. I think it's chaotic for the fans. And I have to imagine if you're a fan, you have to feel demoralized as a Chelsea fan right now, because I think, just comparing them to United, right? Like I think about United and even under Amorim, like I knew that Amorim wasn't, I wanted him to be the guy. I wanted him, the character of Amorim, to be the guy who takes us into the glory land. But nothing for me is ever going to be the thing until the Glazers are removed from power. And that is always where my focus is. That is always what it will be. And that is always how I feel. Doesn't really matter who's manager, doesn't really matter who we sign until the Glazers are out. Like our club will not return to its glory. I know where I'm focused on with Manchester United. I feel like with Chelsea, I just have no idea where to look. I'm distracted by, is Liam the right guy? I'm distracted by, are these players shit? Which they are. I'm distracted by, what is Todd Bowley doing? And like, not to speak lightly of it, but like if Chelsea don't secure European football, because it's not even promised that they get the Europa League, by the way, like they're really sliding down the table right now. If they don't get any European football, like that club is going to be fucked, because the way that they've set up their wage structure, their contracts, they're dependent on that revenue coming in. It's going to be bad. I don't want to misspeak, but wasn't there a couple of weeks ago they got slapped with a transfer ban or a fine of some sort for the way that they've been doing their business? Like as a fan, you're not responsible for the way that the club spends their money, but you have to just be so critical of it, whoever, Russo, sorry that you're going through that, but fuck that club, dude. I cannot stand the Chelsea Blues. I can't stand them. I brought up the players. What a nice little welcoming back to the Manchester United squad that it was for Alejandro Garnacho. Booed in the warm-up, booed by his own players, booed by all the fans afterward. Luke Shaw puts up a nice little Instagram post of him absolutely bodying Garnacho, and so many players are commenting on it. Active players, current players, former players commenting on it, just like it really seems that Garnacho was not a popular character around Old Trafford and around Carrington. And it was great to see when Garnacho came onto the field. We haven't even talked about the game yet, but when Garnacho came onto the field, it already felt like Chelsea were playing with 10 men, which was fantastic. I was down for that. They actually got worse when he came on the field. So funny thing to see there. In United, like just switching to the other side of the table, United are buzzing right now. Some statistics for you. We're in third place. We, for the first time, maybe ever in a Premier League season, we won away at the Emirates, we won away at the Etihad, and we won away at Anfield. Did I get those right? We won away at Stamford Bridge. Maybe didn't win away at the Etihad, but 3 of those. First time ever that we've done that in a season. It's baller. Like we hadn't won at Stamford Bridge in I think like 6 seasons. And so to come in, was it the most convincing victory that we've ever had? No, we had 1 shot on goal, but I think it was pretty clear what we were trying to do. We came there to absolutely suffocate them defensively. And that's what we did. We clogged up the midfield. They weren't able to play through it. While we only had 1 shot on goal, it certainly didn't feel like that. Was it the most beautiful thing that we've ever done? No, but 3 points is 3 points. So some statistics for you. 8 wins in 12 games under Michael Carrick. That win record is incredible. Obviously, the discourse right now is he the right guy? Is he the guy to take us into the promised land? Is he the guy to get the full-time job? And man, it's hard to imagine no, right? Like, especially with what he's proven over the last couple of games. Has it been perfect? No, but he's shown a little bit of flexibility. He's shown that he's been able to get it done. The players obviously love him. Over the course of a whole season, is he going to be able to do it? I'm not sure, but like, it's hard to argue against it. I think right now where I stand as a fan is there isn't another manager in the world that's available or potentially available that I would bring in for Michael Carrick, or I guess instead of Michael Carrick is a better way of putting that. And the only manager that comes up for me is Luis Enrique. For a whole other slew of reasons, and we can talk about that at some point, but I don't know how doable that is. They are also into the semifinals of the Champions League. They're going to win Ligue 1 again, and my guess is he's just, buying his time to negotiate his contract. I'm not sure. But it's hard to ignore Michael Carrick in this particular space. So 8 wins in 12 games under him, a clean sheet away. We also did it with the center back pairing of Aiden Heaven and Mazraoui. We started Delo, Mazraoui, Aiden Heaven, and Luke Shaw. That is a back 4 that may never play again together, ever. Wild. Like, they just got it done, and Mazraoui just like slotted in there like he had been there for 26 games. And Aiden Heaven, 20 years old, seems like a seasoned veteran at this point. I brought him up earlier, but Bruno Fernandes, 18 assists in this season, 2 assists away from tying the single season record set by Thierry Henry and Kevin De Bruyne. He has 5 games left. He needs 3 assists in 5 games in order to break the record. And you'd back him to do it, wouldn't you? Like, just based on how the last couple of games have gone, it's hard to bet against him at the moment. And finally, you have Mateus Cunha scoring the goal. He scored a hat trick at Stamford Bridge last year. I think he just likes playing there, man. I think he loves it. I think it's something he really enjoys doing. So you can't fault him for that. For me, as a United fan, it's just it's great to see. The Dobes and I were laughing that, he and I haven't really been talking too much about United this season, or I guess the last half of the season, because we just keep winning, like when you're losing, when things are in turmoil, when there's chaos, there's stories, there's clicks, there's this, there's that, you're linked with him, you're linked with that. Dobes and I are chilling. We're happy. We're excited to watch us play 1 game a week. Don't get me wrong, but we're excited to watch us play. It's a treat every time we do it. And we move. We're firmly in third. If we win against Brentford on Monday, that secures Champions League spots for us. So that's not the only game for us to do it. Obviously, we need to win one of our next 5 to really solidify that. But if we can wrap that up on Monday, that would be great. If you're really good. As we round out the episode here, the third big storyline, Tottenham. I think they're going down. It's been like this weird thing the whole season where it's like, yeah, definitely. They're too talented to go down for sure. Their squad has players that are going to the World Cup this summer. Some players that are, I was about to say world class, but I don't even know if I said, Christian Romero, world class, but certainly guys that you would take in your team. And yet at the very same time, they can't seem to get it together whatsoever. And this weekend, same storyline, against Brighton, 2-2, a final. 2026, Spurs have not won a game. They haven't won a single league game in 2026. That is absolutely insane. They have 6 points from their last 15 matches. In 45 available points, they have 6. It's atrocious. It's terrible. And, I think when I was looking into the statistics, it looks like they have about a 56% chance of going down, which if you're a betting man, 56% is pretty high. That's a high likelihood. Yeah, it's just so crazy. We've talked about it all season long, like the woes that they've had, and it's just they can't figure it out. It's like the most Spursy thing in the world. And I'm now at the point where being relegated, I think, would be really good for them to kind of reset. They would be forced to do some stuff behind the scenes, but my heart goes out for Andy Hoover, man. It's not looking good, bruv. And, if I had to just give my yes or no, do Tottenham go down? My answer is yes. I think that they go down. And it has to be probably the single worst season in Premier League history if it happens. So if they scrape by, finishing in 16th, okay, they're safe, but it's really not looking great. 17th, whatever is safe, but I think they go down, and it's not good. So I'll finish out tonight my solo pod with talking about St. Louis City, a 4-1 loss against the Seattle Sounders, and man, it's bleak to say the least. We have 1 win on the season. We're 26th in the MLS. We're 14th in the Western Conference. 3 draws, 1 win, 6 points. And I feel so conflicted as a fan. I'm watching us play, and I don't even think that we're playing that bad. We go down 2-0 on 2 Christian Roldan goals, and they were the same goal. Back post on a corner, not marking up. First time it happens, that's a huge mistake. I don't know, coming from a former defender, I do not know how you're not marked up in the box. I do not know how you let that happen. But for it to happen a second time, it's quite literally inexcusable. It's elementary stuff, being 2-0 down. And it's it's so poor because we actually weren't doing too bad in the first half. We really weren't. We were turning it on. And I think this is the first time in our entire history of a club that it's very clear that we want the ball. We're trying to progress out of the back. We sometimes do it. It's we're not playing terribly, but we are so far from being good. Texted in the group during the game, we're not bad, we just suck. And I mean that as a fan. We're not bad, we just suck. As a club, we're just not there. quite literally the only redeeming thing of this game is that Edward Lewin came back and made his return after the passing of his wife, and he scored an absolute thunder of a goal. It was beautiful. I feel like there was a lot of emotion going into that strike, but other than that, quite literally no redeeming qualities about the game at all. I think, it's April 1st, and I'm already looking ahead to the end of June when we can let go of some of these guys. Cordova will be at the end of his contract, which I think he might go down as the worst St. Louis City signing of all time. Well, actually, second worst. Nicholas Dewar was the worst St. Louis City signing of all time for sure, but he has to be up there as a second. Cordova, I'm taking a DP slot for 6 months, which has nothing to do with him. That wasn't his choice. That's Corey Ray and co. Horrible decision. But now that we're what is this, season 4 so far that we've had in St. Louis, we're just a bottom of the table club. We're just not good. Thank God we don't have I guess it is weird, drawing comparisons that if we had promotion relegation, if this was the Premier League, we would be a championship club. That is what we are. We would be a club that might bounce up and bounce down, but we would be a yo-yo club. We would not be a Premier League mainstay based on how we've done. So it sucks to watch. I don't have anything good to say about the team, to be honest with you. So looking ahead, we have some big games coming up. City takes on Burnley, Bournemouth takes on Leeds, Arsenal, Newcastle, United, Brentford. And then we get into the Champions League the following week, which we'll talk about next week when we have the episode. But if you stuck in this long, thank you. Let us know what you think of this solo pod. It's definitely an interesting one. I've never done this before. It's hard to banter yourself in this. Arsenal, Spurs fans, Chelsea fans, they're just going to have to deal with all the things I say. So check us out on social media. Let us know your thoughts, and cheers. We'll see you next time.